Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Fortson. I'll be your host today. Looking forward. Ned invited you up to speak. Um, so for those of you not familiar with me, I'm Dave Fortson. I'm the CEO of Loa Labs, a longtime partner of Regen Network since 2017, pre-white paper even, and been super honored to be part of this wild journey with the squad. Been a lot of fun. And some pretty major things headed our way in September, October with product launches and announcements. Our teams are all going to be on the road together on the East Coast and in Colombia. Really excited to see what's coming at us. And I figured today we would dip into a little bit of that. I definitely want to spend some time digging into some of the Gitcoin grant round 15, obviously on the climate focus side of things, and just see what's moving for folks. So feel free particularly if you have a grant that you want to share out, just raise your hand and I'll bring you up on stage. Let me, in the meantime, and Ned, I want to have you speak shortly about the DeSci grants and just what's moving with DeSci. But I'll give a quick update first on a few things that are moving inside the Regen Network ecosystem related to the product launches. So I think as you're aware, we're moving toward the Eco Marketplace launch. That's going to be happening. We were planning on it happening early next week. It looks like it might be pushed a week or so. For those of you following, there's been a number of grant proposals related to this. I'm sorry, not grant proposals, governance proposals. So to add different stable coins to the allow list for the marketplace currencies. So if you haven't checked that out, there are active governance proposals. I think there's a proposition on USDC Grav or Gravity Bridge based USDC, another one with Axelar USDC. So we should, by the time the marketplace launches, have two different stable coins available. And again, I think there's discussions about adding potentially Regen. I've heard discussions about potentially Atom also being brought into the allow list to make sure that users who want to buy carbon credits from the Regen marketplace have a number of available opportunities to purchase with different currencies, depending on what they're most comfortable with or what's kind of native to their particular ecosystem. So, anyhow, this is required, and it's been a really neat effort to see across multiple teams within the Regen community and also across different chains, just governance proposals helping move forward the Regen marketplace, which is really exciting, and just appreciating just the nature of having a marketplace that requires really a community to coordinate and interact with each other to bring it to life, which is very much the Regen Network way. So I'm pretty bullish and pretty excited about it. It's looking like maybe the week of September 18th. That the marketplace will go live. So we're still sorting out some details, but stand by on that. It's definitely moving along quite steadily, but also not surprisingly, some few snags here and there as we move toward bringing this to fruition. So that is moving on the marketplace front. Also moving, again, as we talked about, the Regen Network team, Regen Foundation teams will be based on the East Coast for about a week in Massachusetts. And we're going to be connecting in and digging into laying out roadmaps for the next year. I'm so really excited. This is going to be a lot of coordinated. So that'll be happening, and then we all land in Medellin. And one of the things that I've been working on, I want to give you all a little alpha. I'm pretty excited about with Regen support and with a little bit of my Regen and my Loa Labs hat on is a greenhouse retreat that's going to be happening in just outside of Medellin, which is going to bring together a number of the significant players in the crypto carbon markets with the goal of digging into interoperability. So for those of you, in this space, we have a number of different chains, a number of different players, Web3 and Web2, all running super hard to bring more liquidity, more carbon credits to market. We've had, I think, as people have discussed, a significant supply issue, plenty of demand, significant supply issue. And as different people are bringing different credits to market with different standards, different ways that the credits were originated, different language, different code, different tokens, we've discussed the need to dig into the concept of interoperability across chain, and frankly, interoperability of language and interoperability between Web 2 and Web 3. So as when we land in Medellin, the Blockchain Infrastructure Carbon Offset Working Group, affectionately known as BICO-WG, is going to be convening about 40 people for 2 full days. And we're going to be digging into a variety of topics around interoperability, tokens, code, and language, how we get closer together, bringing together folks like Klima and Ripple and Solana, Regen Network, just to name a few. And we're going to ideally come out of that with some frameworks and keep pushing toward another gathering in July of next year to ideally have some shared understanding of language, shared understanding of code, and things like that. So interoperability is going to be a focus, I think, for a lot of our work, and certainly has been native to Regen's whole thesis of creating composable green money Legos that will allow multiple players to participate in the market, regardless of your position. So pretty excited about that. Awesome. So with all that said, I'm going to invite a few people up. Timo, I'm going to invite you up. Pranav, Ned, certainly would love to have you all. And again, if any others of you, excuse me, are holding some grants or other community updates, would love to have you come up and join us. But I want to first start, pardon me, with Ned. Ned's with the Regen Network Development Science Team. He's just been a pillar in bringing and holding the space for the DeSci movement within Regen Network Development. Super grateful for his work. And Ned, I would love for you to just bring us up to speed. There's several grants. And I'd say maybe if you could hold the space and create some space around just remind people of what the kind of DeSci movement, kind of where it's at in its evolution and development, and then how some of these grants are getting to advance some of this work would be helpful to understand. So Ned, please go ahead and join us and take it away.
All right, thanks, Dave. So I'll give a brief overview of at least my perception of what the DeSci initiative or DeSci movement is all about. I think it really got started picking up steam early this year at ETH Denver. There were some meetings going on, and some of the kind of disparate groups that were talking about it and thinking about it got together and really launched this initiative. So it's pretty exciting. DeSci is decentralized science, and it's basically leveraging the open science movement. It's building a lot of the infrastructure that's going to be necessary to make some of the ideals behind the open source movement, make that a reality. I mean, my perspective, open science is mostly about licensing, and DeSci is really about kind of operationalizing open science. So we'll see how that goes. At the present, most of the work that's going on in the DeSci space is around kind of biopharma, biomedical stuff. That's kind of where, those are the initial projects that got traction. There really isn't anything in there, or, kind of supporting ecosystem regeneration. And that's something we want to change. And it's something that I'm been working pretty hard to change. And I've partnered with a colleague. Actually, she's on the call I see here, so she can certainly come up and give a little bit. But she's taking the lead to create this kind community to kind of catalyze people or scientists interested in ecosystem regeneration. And we've got a Gitcoin grant up. Hopefully, people can donate to that. And it's that is the grant is meant to support an effort to create this community. One of the big issues that I see is I come from the science kind of research with science and research background, and none of my colleagues know how to get into the crypto space. They don't. I mean, they just read the media and just think Bitcoin's bad, so crypto's bad, and that's pretty much their attitude. And we want to figure out ways to get those people on board because it's critical to kind of bridge that gap. And David mentioned something about this interoperability between Web 2 and Web 3, and I think that's going to be critical. But in the meantime, we need to try to get some of these folks into the kind of Web 3 or crypto blockchain space. And this morning I had this idea. I don't know if it makes sense, but if we can adopt a scientist, if each of us goes out and kind of knows a scientist and sits down with them and helps them get into this space and let kind of open their eyes to say, so they can see that there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. And if they can browse through some of the Gitcoin grants, they'll see that there's a lot of neat stuff going on in this space. But they probably do need somebody to hold their hand. I mean, there are some guides to help people on board, but it's a pretty brutal process. If you're going with no knowledge of crypto, just being able to donate $5 on a Gitcoin grant is really, really hard. But it's not so. I mean, it's not that hard, I guess. It's a bit complicated. So anyway, my call is out to you folks is to find a scientist, adopt that scientist, and help onboard them into this space. So there are a few other projects I wanted to highlight. There's another one that there's a colleague that's also going to be helping us with this kind of refi community. And I don't think she's on this call, but she's working on bottlenose porpoises or bottlenose dolphins around Uruguay. So she's somebody else that's working in this DeSci space. She works for DeSci World, which is an organization that's trying to promote DeSci. There's another project that I'm actually working on. This is kind of like a weekend evening project where we're trying to build a community around animal movement. So animal tracking technologies and things like that. So that's something else you might want to check out. And there's another one, Josh Fairhead, who a lot of you know from when he used to be with Regen Foundation. He's working on a project as well. And that's that is going to be more like a facilitation role, trying to get people into the Regen Network, get projects going, help facilitate people that have great ideas and help them facilitate getting them on to our blockchain. Anyway, I don't want to go on too long. There are a lot of really cool projects, and I encourage people to go out and support them. And if you've got questions, please bring them up. I'd love to talk about this and kind of the role DeSci is going to be playing into the future.
Thanks, Ned. Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, can I make a quick, I'll just make a quick announcement. So the first project that Ned mentioned is called Regenerati Network, and we're working to really just be a support layer for all the amazing stuff that's going on and provide a sandbox for folks to work together and also, eventually work towards providing funding channels for folks to do what they want to do the science that is near and dear to their hearts. And so we hope to do quite a bit of onboarding support as well. So we would love to see a donation for Regenerati Network, that grant, if you're feeling drawn to supporting. And yes, with quadratic funding, even one DAI can make a huge difference. So that link is in my bio, and feel free to click on it. Thanks for letting me give a quick plug. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm super bullish on DeSci and refi. I think it's going to be one of these movements that we're at the early stages of that is going to be transformative as we continue to feed it and grow. So I'm super excited. Before I bring up some other speakers, and again, I see you, Ecolabs definitely will bring you up in a sec, but I want to actually set the stage a little bit, maybe rewind just a tad. I've got my friend and colleague, Ben West from Gitcoin. Ben's a baller in the better world blockchain space, doing some incredible work with Gitcoin, and we're working on some other pretty interesting projects together with BecoWG and Ethereum Merge coming up, et cetera. But I'm hoping to, because GR15 is super hot, so hot right now. And I'd love for Ben, maybe you just to just a couple things. One, set the stage for us. How many grants? What kind of funding did we get? From various folks to distribute, and maybe touch in on just remind people how quadratic funding works in case people only have $5. Does it matter to make a donation to one of these projects? And anything else you're bullish on as far as trends that you're seeing, and then we're going to dig into some of the projects with Pranav and Ecolabs and others. So Ben, take it away.
Hey, right on. Lovely to share a Twitter space with all of you. It's funny how many different hats all of us wear. Saying hello to Sage and Pranav, who I'm working with on any number of different things at the same time together. And Sage and I will be on another stage later today together that Sage is hosting. So yeah, the grants round is kicked off. I am beyond excited about it. A little bit tired, but having a great time. We have $350,000 in this climate round, and another good chunk in the DeSci round. Bunch of great partners that are helping us to make this a reality. Notably, Regen Network, who's been supporting the climate round since the very first one in GR12. Big thanks to Regen and the community. We also have Ocelot from the Cello community, who's been a supporter as well since the beginning. Momus.eth, the NFT collective, as well as a couple of other new supporters this round. ForceDAO, which is a DeFi app, and Alchemix, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Really great to have some new folks on board, as well as some what we're calling alumni partners, which is folks who basically have graduated out of the Gitcoin grants program and are now coming back as supporters, which is really cool to see. We have 3 of those supporting the climate round this round. Toucan, who's also helping us to offset the round. We're going to be doing a dedicated Twitter space and some discussion around that. Which I think will be a bit of a precursor to this broader conversation about, carbon removal, offsets, and, other forms of mitigation related to historic emissions from the Ethereum blockchain. But we actually have enough partners on board that not only are we offsetting the first half of the round this round, but we're actually going to be, I think, offsetting all the way back to, if my math is correct, somewhere around GR9 or GR10. So stay tuned for more details about that next week. But a little bit of alpha for all you Regenerati here. And the last 2 alumni partners we have on board is Lobby 3. You might be familiar with Andrew Yang's entity that's become a DAO. They actually just got funded for the first time last round in the advocacy round and decided to give a little bit back and give to the climate round. Well, they're actually still a grantee in the advocacy round, which is pretty cool to see. We haven't had a lot of experiences like that where somebody gave part of the money they raised back to a matching fund and then continued to be a grantee. So happy to have that happening. And finally, Helios, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with as well, renewable energy financing project. So in terms of what is quadratic funding, I'm guessing most people on the call are aware, but the example that I like to give, you can find it on the WTF is QF website or qf.gitcoin.co. That basically, if you had 2 different grants, they both received $100 in donations and there was a $100 matching fund. Instead of that matching fund being allocated dollar for dollar evenly between the 2 projects, if one of them had 10 donors who each gave $10 and one had 1 donor who'd given $100, $80 out of that match would go to the grant that had 10 donors and $20 would go to the one that had 1 donor. Really the underlying sort of why behind quadratic funding is this idea of kind of, democratizing grant funding. How do we, disempower whales, put more power directly in the hands of individuals? And that's where this idea of even one die can make a difference. I always feel like I'm, on one of those late night infomercials whenever I say that, $1 can make a difference, but really is true. the voting with your dollars really is a form of signaling. It's not just about the amount of money that you contribute, although, that money does go directly to the grantee. None of it stays with Gitcoin. But, the fact that your money can be a signal that gives a sense of kind of, what the sentiment of the community is, what the wisdom of the crowd is. This really is a way to take early stage ideas, get them sort of tested in the court of public opinion, find where the support is in the community, and sometimes, form new relationships, new opportunities for cross-pollination, new opportunities for new ideas that are, interoperable, composable, to work together. And it's very cool to see projects like Demeter, and, even Astral Protocol and others who I think, to at least at some extent, started as different projects in earlier grants rounds, and at least in part through their experience being grantees, found each other and started to collaborate. And I think we're just going to see more and more and more of this, and really glad to see this kind of focus on interoperability and composability, and coordination that really is such a vitally important part of this space overall. And I'm glad to see folks from various different blockchains and different communities coming together to be part of these conversations. The Ethereum merge is a big, exciting moment, for crypto overall. But of course, many projects have been proof of stake since day one. And, it's great to see us all kind of sharing space just to talk about what's possible and sort of learning from each other.
Hey, question, Ben. Are you noticing any, just, because again, I think, God, I want to say my first one I participated in was about a year ago, and I can't remember which number it was. But either way, I'm curious to see or hear if you've seen any trends in the type of applications or the type of projects that are qualifying for the grant rounds, what ecosystems are coming from, the types of projects that are emerging. I mean, to me, it's always a fascinating exercise to look into kind of what's hot at a moment, particularly in the crypto space, which moves so quickly. And the refi space is moving so quickly in its evolution, from kind of loud, noisy, eco warriors into, more sophisticated, building infrastructure and institutional strength, obviously, which is seeded by projects like Gitcoin that, provide some of that early funding or support funding. So, share anything you are seeing right now and what you might expect even for the next round.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it is such a privilege to be in this position and see all of these early stage projects as their applications are coming in, and then to wade into all the data about how much support they have and where it's coming from, and all that is just utterly fascinating. And and I can say that I've in the last few months I've talked to many of you on this call, actually, in the context of some research I'm doing for the Ethereum Foundation, which has given me the ability to go even deeper into those conversations. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely some really interesting trends I'm seeing. Just for the sake of flagging it right off the top, first trend I'm noticing is that Pranav is a force of nature. We have a whole bunch of Refi South projects coming on board, and I think that has a lot to do with the organizing of you, sir. So I tip my hat to you. We also are, I would say, just in terms of sort of general trends that I'm noticing in terms of the types of projects, definitely oracles and, things in the MRV, MEV space, tend to have a fair amount of interest right now. Projects like Spirals, that are looking at sort of staking and ways to create, drips and interoperability and sort of approaches to, sort of finance public goods on an ongoing basis with lower friction. There's definitely a certain amount of interest around that, and things like Return Protocol I would sort of put in that same category. Really what I've tried to do with the climate round as it's gotten bigger and bigger, and I should say we're at, I think, 180 projects approximately right now that are up on the platform, and still more proposals coming in that we're trying to stay on top of. Big shout out to Sage for all the work helping to coordinate and facilitate that process for all the teams involved in reviewing all of that. Huge amount of work. So big shout out there. But yeah, I mean, what we've been trying to do is break the round down into categories, because I think there are some very distinct different categories within the round. We see kind of arts and culture projects and podcasts and things like that. Like Refi DAO is pretty consistently done pretty well in the round. The impact cartographers group got a fair amount of support. I was actually one of the biggest recipients of funding overall in the grants round last round. If I was guessing where the puck is going this round, I would guess that the sort of projects that cross over between DeSci and climate will probably do quite well in this round, just simply because of being in more than one matching round, and because there's a fair amount of interest and sort of momentum behind the sort of DeSci idea right now, and I think that'll be a really interesting cross-pollination to watch. Super interested in the Resci project and the other ones that I've seen emerging that are really effectively kind of crossing that chasm, so to speak. Shamba Network I think is another interesting one. I see our friends at Carbon DAO here. Y'all did really great in the last round. I'm sure we'll continue to. I'm already seeing a lot of support coming in for Carbon DAO. So yeah, I mean, we've tried to break the round down into these different categories. Like I was saying, there's arts and culture projects, refi projects, renewable energy related projects, and some pretty traditional activism and on the ground support for community work. And it's cool to see how quadratic funding can sort of play a role in helping support all of these different projects. And even the ones that don't make as much money, can still have a huge impact. And it's great to see how even some of these smaller projects that receive like maybe $5,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood, we're still seeing all kinds of amazing images and stories roll in about the impact that they're having on the ground. So I don't think the number one indicator is kind of the amount of money you've raised, because everybody needs different amounts of money to accomplish their goals. But I think in terms of trend lines, definitely seeing kind of oracles and stuff to do with monitoring and verification, seems to have a fair amount of just general interest. And would love to see actually more projects like some of the ones that I've talked to, in the sort of real world logistics and transportation and carbon accounting space emerging. That seems to be an area that has a lot of really interesting stuff going on, but doesn't seem to be as actively a part of our climate round yet. So there still is time. If you know some cool projects out there that you think should get involved in the grants round, please send them our way.
Awesome, Ben. I appreciate your fountain of knowledge on this stuff, and I'm super grateful for your work and advocacy for all of our communities. And it's always nice to be part of the money tree, and grateful that money tree is full of refi leaves. Very grateful. So thank you. Pranav, force of nature. Very honored to work with Pranav over at Loa Labs, and obviously Pranav has got his fingers in all kinds of interesting things. I love Pranav, particularly if you could give an update on Regen Foundation's GR15 project. I know you're working deeply with them through Loa Labs and through your Global South work. So bring us up to speed. What's Regen Foundation up to in their first ever Gitcoin grant round?
Thanks, Dave. Thanks so much for that. Firstly, just a quick bit of hygiene. There are a lot of projects being talked about today, and we don't want to miss any of them. So for any speakers who come on in, please do tag those projects to this Twitter Spaces, tweet. I would request you to do that so that others can really follow and catch those projects and donate to them. So that's one thing that I just want to highlight. The other bit that I just want to say a big thank you and a big shout out for all the kind words that Dave as well as Ben have spoken about me. Frankly, I'm just standing on the shoulders of these giants. I see Timo over here. A lot of people out here who have inspired me to do my bit in this part of the world. So yeah, thank you for doing what you do, and for just being there for all of us, who reach out to you and ask for help, and you're more than happy to support us. So yeah, I just want to also quickly give just touch upon the projects, and this is something that Ben has explained in detail. But to me, the way I look at it, one of the reasons why DeSci is really coming up is because there's a real need on the ground. A lot of projects in developing countries, they struggle to really get audited. There are huge barriers to entry in taking all of these eco credits or carbon credits for the smaller projects. I mean, what if somebody has like a 500,000, 2,000 credits? It's virtually it's not economically viable. So there's this big need for DMRV to address, and hence we see DeSci really coming in to address that. So it's essentially just the market, the demand really asking for it. The other bit that I want to highlight as a trend before I come to Regen Foundation is BCOWG. And this is something that it's not being spoken about so much on the space right now, but crypto advocacy and the whole climate crypto advocacy is a huge component. We really need to educate people out there in terms of understanding that crypto is not just for the DeFi folks. There are the new guys in town, and they're doing great work, the refi ones. So I think there's this whole crypto advocacy, and BCOWG is not only holding advocacy, but also in fact holding across a spectrum of stakeholders. Having these opposing perspectives. Having stakeholders from the Web 2 and the Web 3 space, and then ensuring that these right perspectives are offered to stakeholders who may be sitting on the statutory side of the table or the standard side of the table. And I just want to flag and highlight, the greenhouse summer retreat, the greenhouse retreat that's happening in Colombia. That's going to be just this amazing place for a lot of these conversations to really come to life. We just want to make sure that we seed, we put these seeds in the ground and they grow over this year. And specifically now, quickly coming to Regen Foundation, here's the perspective. Regen Foundation has been doing this huge amount of work, but what happens is a lot of it, appears to people as push, whereas in fact, Regen Foundation has actually got people all over the world, in India, in Africa, and these are people who are really doing work on the ground. So what we are doing essentially out here is just turning the perspective for people. So it's no longer just Regen Foundation, somebody just pushing things down onto the developing countries, but this is actually, the project is out there for you to see. These are people in Africa, in Kenya, who are going to take on this mantle of doing all of this work. This is money that's going to go specifically for this project, and it's essentially, again, this huge potential. And this number might surprise you. There are 11 million self-help women, self-help informal groups, and all of these are currently, helping, and they're like cooperative, so to speak, literally like DAOs, except for the whole Web3 DAO. And just because we got the new lingo doesn't mean that they are not doing what they're supposed to do, or they're not doing a great job of it. So what we want to make sure that we surface them, we provide them the tools so that they don't have to spend money in the traditional financial system and just face this challenge of, when they go to banks, face this barrier that, oh, you're informal, you don't have the documents, or you're not big enough for us to take on board. What we want to do is empower them, enable them to onboard Web3, and we are taking up 2 pilots. One of them is around mangroves, and what we want to do out there is to onboard these ecosystem credits. And the other is, again, around this whole financial aspect, about really educating these stakeholders to the potential that Web3 offers. So that's probably what it is. I've already shared the tweet regarding Loa Labs, which has a grant collection, and that's attached to the tweet of the space. So Loa Labs has got Regen Foundation in that collection. It's got BCOWG, and yes, a little plug-in for the work I do called Refi by South. The idea there is to, for this round, is to enable folks to literally, do the work and pay them for it. So do refi roundups in various countries, do Twitter spaces in the regional languages to really get these conversations going. And it's not for me to push this language that we talk about here in these spaces, not for me to push refi, but to just listen to them and take their language and map it onto what we are doing. So ensure that we surface them, we enable them, and just connect up the dots, so to speak. I'll stop there. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Wonderful, Pranav. Thank you so much for all your work, and holding space for so many of these important conversations, bringing our brothers and sisters in the global South squarely at their rightful place at the table. Super excited and bullish on the work that you're doing. Ecolabs, tell us what you've got moving. Keep it brief so we can jump around to a few other folks, but you've got a project moving through GR15. Tell us about it.
Yeah, and I actually would love to come back to Ned for just a moment here, and because I had a question around this. What is the overlap do you see between environmental stewardship? I know you've put together that draft for environmental stewardship, and sort of like looking at practice-based methodologies. What's the overlap and sort of opportunity between that and the crossover with DeSci and sort of citizen science or the engagement of the scientific community? I'm wondering, like, are there any opportunities there, specific overlaps, or things we should be aware of there?
Yeah, there are definitely overlaps, and it's a lot of that work that I was doing in the Environmental Stewardship Initiative that kind of drove the DeSci work. As part of the Environmental Stewardship Initiative, even though most of the projects will be practice-based, we still think data collection is very important. The data should be used instead of a carrot and a stick or reward and punishment. We think the data should be used to basically learn more about how a specific practice is impacting the environment. So to do that, we need to have a group of scientists that are actually interested in addressing some of these problems. And right now, the solution is to try to form partnerships with dozens of different universities or research organizations, and it's extremely cumbersome. But if we have a group or community that's dedicated to researching and providing knowledge, advancing our knowledge about ecosystem regeneration, then it becomes a much more effective and efficient process. So that's what's driving a large part of this, and it is directly connected to the environmental stewardship. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And just a quick follow-up, where should I, if we're coming in contact with other, researchers, scientific, academics, and who want to get involved, or, where should I direct them, and what's a good resource for kind of dipping their toes, or even my toes, into sort of research around this topic?
Ned, you there? You're muted if you are.
Yeah, sorry. So I think initially we have a Discord server set up. I think that's probably where a lot of the work is going to start. We also have a website that's under development. And I don't know, Sage, if you want to chime in here, if you've got some other ideas. I mean, right now I would say Discord, but Sage is much more literate in this area than I am.
All right, thank you, Ned. So, as maybe if Sage hops back up, she can chime in. But I'll take just a brief moment to describe kind of what we're working on at Ecolabs. The grant that we have put together is focused in on what we're calling the Impact app, and the goal here is really to serve two functions. One is onboarding people on the. Hey, Sage.
Oh, sorry. The transition from listener to speaker is always funky. I don't know about you guys, but it kind of blacks out, and then I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Sage. Curious, where should I send academics and scientific researchers to get engaged?
Yeah, this is a great question of how we could, sort of form a pipeline or like a dual effort here with the onboarding ramp, sort of folks drawing scientists in and being like a group of folks being focused on that inbound flow and letting scientists know that there is a whole online community of support and sandboxes for them to do decentralized science. And then the nitty gritty of actually getting your identity sort of set up in Web3 is a whole other can of worms. So I'm hoping that one of the first things we could do is actually provide an onboarding resource guide, which would be basically just a video series, a screen recorded video series and a step-by-step written guide and as plain of English as possible. Yesterday, I just onboarded my mom into Web3. So I've been thinking about how to do it for folks that are have never thought about these things, and getting the GitHub set up, getting the wallet set up. None of these things are too terribly difficult. It's just a matter of kind of having that emotional support and knowing that it's okay, and knowing how to write your passwords down. And anyway, yeah, so I think one of the first resources we're going to create is that on-ramping guide for folks that are new to Web3. And then the infrastructure around like what will refi network be? What shape will it take? I think our goal is to start in a Discord server, and we are going to have a landing page that's under construction. I'm hoping that our landing page will mostly be a resource directory to other things happening in the space, other groups working, and to really be a hub of links and the sort of like most meta level of the web for regenerative science to help people find each other and connect. And then within the Discord server, we're going to have working groups and subgroups that are basically broken out into like marine ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, and regenerative agriculture system. And within there, also find a space for things like MRV, although I think there's overlap with the MRV conversation and all of those three subgroups. So the goal is just to get scientists in a room, so to speak, with other folks doing similar work, and to take something like the open science space and Regen Network and support it by flushing it out even more and just drawing more and more scientists to it, and having a server that's dedicated to scientific collaboration and community building. And so I think that's where we'll start, and I hope that we can raise enough in GR15 to hire like a badass community manager who has a lot of time to hold space for folks and answer a lot of questions, hopefully someone with experience in DeSci. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if that answered y'all's questions.
Yeah, sounds like things are just beginning and getting formed, but I think there's some really clear opportunities for collaboration with Ecolabs and looking at onboarding, and then with the DMRV organization that we're also a part of, Demeter, and on the MRV side, and kind of looping in those discussions and leaders in the scientific space with MRV. And yeah, there's really some clear opportunities for collaboration. I guess I'll just keep it brief. I think the clear path here towards actual action, I'd love to use kind of what we're hoping to do as a testing ground and place to actually test and develop some of these tools and ecosystems that are being developed here. We're going to be going to Colombia and spending an extended time in Barichara, and I think some of you might be aware of some of the regenerative work that's happening there with Earth Regenerators, and we're in early stage development of an app that can help collect image data and kind of look at the human sensing piece of environmental stewardship and practice-based methodologies, and that would be developed either following others or developing our own methodology for use of Regen Network, and looking closely at like that onboarding and sort of the people, the projects that are already doing regenerative work. Or really, I think the really powerful thing is looking at the people who are doing traditional practices and what it takes for them to make that transition over to regenerative. That's really kind of where Ecolabs is focused, and what we hope the Impact app can help kind of facilitate and serve is that onboarding of people on the ground into these amazing ecosystems that value impactful action and can help them make that transition over to regenerative practices. And so, yeah, I would love to hear from someone else.
Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. Appreciate that. Let's bounce around. Timo, one of the unofficial mayors of the refi community, erstwhile leader of the Basin DAO, doing incredible work. Timo, what are you seeing? Anything you want to shout out, and then we'll hop over to EcoToken.
Yeah. Hey, Dave. Hey, everyone. Great to see familiar faces and hear familiar voices. Regenerati News Hour is always one of the highlights of my week. I take the dog out for a walk, go down to the river, and just kind of unplug from the computer and everything, and just hang out and listen to friends talk about awesome projects. So the stoke is high, and you combine that with Gitcoin GR15, it gets even higher, and the whole refi space. So super psyched for everything happening. Two things that I think are important, kind of to this discussion and what everyone's talking about regarding the DeSci movement and connecting things to real on the ground regeneration. Basin is working closely with the RWA consortium, TaterDAO, LexDAO, some other RWA real world asset projects who are in Gitcoin 15. And we're working on like an open standards and framework for real estate and for property. The way, something we've kind of bounced around is like a permissionless approach to real estate. Unfortunately, right now, real estate is not permissionless. You need permission to use the property, do your regenerative activities, do everything on the property. You need the rights and the legal use agreements in place to do that. So Basin is working with a bunch of different lawyers. We call them, legal engineers, and we're figuring out how do we connect the real world assets to all these different interoperable, composable apps and D-apps and whatnot that are popping up. So the initial work on that, if you do a hashtag search for Basin Stack, is kind of going to be our like layered approach. It's kind of a two-tiered, like around MRV and like how do you assess a property and what's going on a property and look at all the different ways to look at not the highest and best use of a property, but the higher and better use of a property for all these impact outcomes we're looking at. So it's like a checklist, due diligence kind of manual to like, okay, what are all the different things that we should be looking at, whether it be biodiversity, habitat, carbon, water quality, air quality, all the different things. We have a lengthy list right now. So that's number one, like an assessment tool. And then number two is the actual units of measurement. And this is where it gets really interesting with the DeSci stuff is like with biodiversity, what's the unit of measurement that we need to track over baseline? Same with what Ecolabs is doing or what Ned is doing with the stewardship methodology of like, okay, what's the baseline? What's the measurement? Do we want to, we want to increase biodiversity. We want to increase habitat. We want to increase carbon sequestration. We want to lower energy usage. We want to lower air pollution. So we're trying to basically, this will be kind of the initial steps of Basin's eco credits and what we're developing with Regen. Interoperable, composable real estate and kind of separating out the two things around ecosystem services and then real estate itself, like looking at the different layers around the actual property and how do we mobilize, agnostic and indifferent capital to come into the climate space and the nature space and creating different investment products that help us get our job done and our goals accomplished, but not having to woo and persuade capital that doesn't really care. So that's kind of a long summary, but we're holding 3 different Twitter spaces over the next 2 weeks. We have the CO2 Cult Giveathon. That's going to be awesome. I think that's next Tuesday. And then we're holding 2 different Refi Friday events. The one tomorrow is around all the different RWA Gitcoin 15 rounds, all the real estate and property projects, across the whole grant round. And then next week on Friday is the DeSci, reSci, MRV, DRMRV space. And we're going to do cart collections for each one and try and cross-pollinate and cross-promote each 2 of those different subsets.
Right on. Timo, thank you. Super just grateful for how you show up in the refi space and the movement that you're helping facilitate, bringing, I think, your brilliant real estate mind and experience is such a huge value add for the rest of us in this complicated quilt we're all sewing together. So much thanks and props to your work. Eco Token. You got the floor. I want to make sure you get New Atlantis out here, and I see Anna out there as well. So a couple more folks. So we've got 10 minutes. Shill your project. We want to hear.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me here. I'm actually not. We put a Gitcoin round up, but it's actually not for our project. It's for our refi DAO water circle. So we really want to start a community effort to bring about the facilitation of a water credit and a standardized water credit native to Web3. So we're starting with a desalination credit that we want to launch on Regen. And basically we want to raise a little bit of capital to bring on some researchers and bring a standardized desal credit that the community can get behind and build further water credits off of. So it's just sort of a fully community-backed project that we're trying to get going in the refi space, and it doesn't really have much to do with Eco Token itself, although we'll probably produce water credits in the future because we have a ton of water technologies that we use. But basically, it's kind of an experiment to see if the refi community wants to support something like this and bring new credits online and see where we can go with it. Because we think we have a team that can research it, and we've got some other people in the refi community willing to jump in on the research as well. So just need a little bit of a kickstart is all.
Wonderful. Thanks for the share out. I love that. I haven't heard of that particular app or grant app, but I'm going to dip in. Certainly a very potent time for those types of credits to be hit, and given the nature of scarcity of water and where we're at. So thank you for bringing that. New Atlantis, you're up next.
Hi everyone. I hope you can hear me outside. I'm outside, so it's a little windy. Anyway, New Atlantis is an ocean regen project, and we're focused on marine biodiversity as a way to measure and quantify health in marine ecosystems. So we've leaned very heavily into metagenomics and have built a cloud-based data lab. Our architect is on this call as well, Science Stanley. And we're taking a very data-driven science approach to how do you quantify marine biodiversity and ultimately, at the end of the day, create biodiversity credits, but even in the interim, figure out how much life can actually translate into how much blue carbon within a given body of water. And the oceans present a whole host of complicating issues, some of which are kind of related to what Timo was talking about in terms of getting permission, but sometimes it's not clear who you need to get permission from. Plus, unlike land, water is fluid, and so things move around. So it's a interesting challenge, but we're very excited about it, and we're extremely bullish on the idea of like open and collaborative standards, because we think not only is quantifying biodiversity like a super hard thing to do, but it's also an opportunity to aggregate the global collective intelligence, because there are a lot of people out there who are working on mechanistic ecosystem models that can give sort of views into how you might quantify or create indices around biodiversity. But each one of these things is sort of a piece of the puzzle. So our goal is really to create an open container where we have a meta model where we start to aggregate data sets and different models into a meta model to ultimately result in a unit of account for marine biodiversity. Hopefully that wasn't too jargony, and happy to sort of elaborate more. I did want to say, be really great to collaborate with a number of the people on here, because onboarding not just regular citizens, but onboarding populations that live in or near marine protected areas would be particularly helpful and fruitful for us, both for data collection, as well as also onboarding people from academic or national lab backgrounds, because at least my sense of it is there's a lot of talent trapped in that academic community that doesn't really have much of an outlet right now other than to publish in relatively obscure journals. So we want to allow them to take their thinking and their data sets and apply them into a meta model, into an open meta model where they can be compensated for the value that they create, whether it's on the data or the piece of the meta model algorithm that they contribute.
Right on. Thanks so much. And I saw Science Stanley hop up. Looked like you're new to Atlantis. Anything to quickly add? And then I'm going to head over to and bring up Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be super quick. And I was just going to listen, but I always get so excited when I hear, Gordon talking about the New Atlantis vision. I'm Science Stanley. I'm on the core team at LabDAO, and then I'm so honored to be working with Gordon over at New Atlantis. And yeah, just basically everything Gordon said, like day job. Typically, I'm building genetic technology to support patients in a clinical setting. And it's incredible the breakthroughs and the speed of advances in that field. And we just sort of feel like the oceans deserve healthcare as good as anyone else. And so it's a really exciting thing to be involved in. And, like Gordon says, too, the ecosystem here is so beautiful. And it's really just special to be involved in, building these positive missions with all you guys. So more than anything, just wanted to say we got your back, too. And, if New Atlantis or LabDAO or anyone else in the ecosystem can support any projects, please don't hesitate to follow and reach out.
Wonderful. Thanks for the shout there. Anna, is it, if I'm saying it correctly, Anna or Anna, you want to share what you're working on?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see familiar faces and amazing projects, like really being in the same space and building all together this movement. Like it's so inspiring. So I founded CocoDAO after spending a few years in agriculture in Colombia. I just couldn't watch deforestation without doing anything. So this is where my curiosity started. Basically, we're creating regenerative economic models that are powered by Web3 to really give these communities a viable alternative to deforestation, and while also creating education and jobs in healing and protecting nature. So it will really mean the world for us if you could help us in our Gitcoin grants. Yeah, thank you guys.
Right on. Thank you. Awesome, everybody. Well, we've got a few minutes left. Ed, I know you've been waiting patiently. If you want to drop in and say hello as we end toward the hour here.
Hello, thank you. I want to speak on the DeSci issue. The regenerative ag movement has basically been driven between the farmers and a bunch of scientists that recognize working with them, the importance of that. So there's a number of them all around the world. I mean, they get the concept. Many of them used to work for academia or USDA as a scientist or some other government agency science. Some of them are still in academia, but they all get the concept of decentralized science. They all are very giving of their information, their data. They're working with regenerative farmers to collect a ton of data in the last few years, and it just needs to be used now. So somehow we need to figure out how to bridge the gap to connect that whole network of scientists that really get the basic foundational concept of it into this work. So thank you.
Wonderful. We are at the top of the hour. We have 1 minute left. I'm going to bring up our last speaker, AYOWECCA, Uganda. And he's connecting in. All right. Well, maybe they won't be able to connect in. Okay, folks. Well, I think that ties us toward the end. I'm really grateful for all of you who showed up today. Yeah, you're good to go. You've got exactly 1 minute, so give a shout out.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Jonathan Olwenya. I'm the founder of IWECA Uganda. IWECA Uganda is a community non-government organization that is working on environment and social development. And for the past couple of months, I thank all our contributors that contributed to our our organization. We are planting fruit trees in schools and health centers, and we still have more. So at the Archdiocese, of Tororo requested us also to plant fruit trees in churches around the Archdiocese. So we still have a lot to do, and I really give thanks and credit to all those who contributed to our charity. And through your support, we shall continue to give back to the community. And you keep an eye on our Twitter page that we give every week on the on the updates on what we do every week in regards to the Gitcoin funding that they supported us. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being patient and joining us. It's really nice to have your voice here at the table. I just wanted to honor what a beautiful global family we've got here in the Regen ecosystem. I'm super grateful for how all of you show up, and we know all of you are working very hard, and so many of us are bootstrapping all of our endeavors. So when we tie together like this, it is makes us all so much stronger. So carry on, friends and family, and good luck out there this week. We will see you next Thursday morning for the Regenerati News Hour. Thanks again, and have a great week. Bye-bye.